Hey guys, welcome to our channel. So we've been decoding REM Losing My Religion, and we got the letters to go through all the categories. We got translations. Um, we got a couple of interesting things out of that. Um, and now we're going to convert this into numbers. So, whoop. So, set enough changed to set it up. And because this S is still in set it up, it didn't really change. The S is still there. So we cross off the S. And since the I is still over here and set it up, it didn't really change. So we cross off the I. And since this E is still over here and set it up, it didn't really change. So we can cross off that E. And what you're left with is A, D, N, O, or no, the U, excuse me, the U is still over here and set it up. So you cross that off too. And what you're left with is ADNOGHTTP. And that happened twice, by the way, in the song. And I should have wrote 2 times, because that happened twice. So you bring ADNOGHTTP down twice. And once you hit this overlap, we can turn around and come back. And when we hit the overlap coming back, we're done. Now, we converted those into numbers using this chart here. We've been using it the whole time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And those are all the letters. So you have A is 1, D is 4, N is 5, O is 6, G is 7, H is 8, T is 2, T is 2, and P is 7. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 2, 7. Twice. All right. And those are our numbers. So we start with 145, the first 3 numbers, and that ends up being 145 right here. It ends up being Hong Kong Building and Loan Agency Ltd. On the Hong Kong Exchange. All right, if you move on from that, you have 456 and 456, which is right here. 456 ends up being New City Development Group Ltd. On the Hong Kong Exchange. If you move on from that, you have 567 and 567 right here. Ends up being Daasho Microline Holdings Ltd. On the Hong Kong Exchange. And if you move on from that, you have you're not moving on. You have 567 again, which ends up being Colex Holdings. And there's 567, and it's on the Singapore Exchange, SGX. Now you move on from that. You actually have 67, and 67 right here ends up being China Lumina New Materials Corp, and it's on the Hong Kong Exchange. If you move on from that, you have 678, which ends up being Genting, and there's your 678 right there. And you have Genting Hong Kong Ltd. And that is on the Hong Kong Exchange, on the Hong Kong. And if you move on from that, you have 78 and 78 is right here. Whoop, that's Hong Kong. 78. And 78 ends up being Regal Hotels International Holdings, Ltd. And it's on the Hong Kong exchange. If you move on from that, that was Regal Hotels International Holdings. Okay, I did. If you move on from that, you get 822, which ends up being 822 right here. And it is Kashui International Holdings, Ltd. And it's on the Hong Kong exchange. And if you move on from that, you get 227, which ends up being 227 right here. And that ends up being First Shanghai Investments, Ltd. And it's on the Hong Kong exchange as well. And if you move on from that, you get 271. And 271 ends up being AsiaSec Properties Ltd. And it's on the Hong Kong exchange. Miramar, if you move on from that, you got 71, which ends up being 71 right here. And it's Miramar Hotel and Investments Company, Ltd. And it's on the Hong Kong exchange. 71 also is EA71. And it is Extended Stay America Incorporated, and it is on the Frankfurt Exchange in Germany. And that gets you through going forwards. No. You got, we're still going forward. You got 714 forwards, and that's right here, 714. And that ends up being CPT Global Ltd. And that is on the Frankfurt Exchange in Germany. And that gets you through going forwards. And now we're coming back. You start with the. And when we're coming back, I'll pop this back up, and then you start with 722 coming back. And I did make a mistake on an earlier video today. I said something was 41, and it was actually 14. I guess I had a momentary dyslexia. Don't remember what that was offhand. 41 and 14 still sum to the same. It's like the mirror, but it was still wrong. So I apologize for that. So now we're coming back, 722. And there's your 722. And that ends up being UMP Healthcare Holdings, Ltd. And that is on the Hong Kong exchange. If you move on from that, you have 228. There's your 228. That ends up being China Energy Development Holdings, Ltd. And that is on the Hong Kong exchange. If you move on from that, you have 287. There's your 287. And that ends up being Winfair Investment Company, Ltd. And that is on the Hong Kong exchange. You move on from that, you have 876, which ends up being, and there's your 876, ends up being Kasia Health Group Holdings, Ltd. And that is on the Hong Kong here. The Hong Kong. And if you move on from that, you have 765, and that ends up being, there's your 765, ends up being Perfect Tech International Holdings Ltd. And that is, once again, on the Hong Kong Exchange. If you move on from that, you have 6541. That ends up being, and there's your 6541, and that ends up being Tanvex Biopharma Incorporated. Good times. Pharmaceutical company, it looks like to me. And that is on the Taiwan Exchange. If you move on from that, you have 541. And there's 541. That ends up being Abundance International Ltd. And that is on the Singapore SGX. If you move on from that, you have 417. There's your 417. That ends up being Sisu Loon Jewelry International Ltd. And that's on the Hong Kong Exchange. Yes. And if you move on from that, you have 172. Now you're in your overlap. Well, we were in the overlap before, I guess. But 172, and that ends up being Gold Bond Group Holdings, Ltd. And that is on the Hong Kong Exchange. And that gets you through going forwards and backwards in the stock market in the numbers. So that's going to be it for this one. Finance will be next, probably tomorrow. And then we'll hit genetics, medical. We'll keep it going right through the categories. And then when we get done with that, if we don't see anything that changes our mind about the University of North Dakota, we will do the gematria on the University of North Dakota and see if it connects to the other Mandela effects that we've connected so far. And we have connected, I think, 11 Mandela effects to each other, undeniably. You can argue it's a coincidence. You can't argue that they're connected. So I think that's interesting. We'll see if we're right about this University of North Dakota, or if something in here changes our mind on that. So that's going to be it for this one. So for now, guys, thanks for all your thumbs up, thumbs down when appropriate. Thanks for all your comments, leads, feedback, and subscriptions. And thanks for watching, guys. And for now, you guys have a great rest of your day.